This is Qtv News and I am Jenna Basonko. Thanks for joining us. Now the main local, international and sports news headlines. As nearly 200 health workers test positive for the coronavirus, there is displeasure from the association representing resident doctors about how little government is doing to protect them. The Mayoress of Banjul is at the forefront of an initiative trying to convince residents of the capital to get tested and know their status. Youths of Bakau Newtown and Fajara, in collaboration with their ward councillor, have set up a COVID-19 emergency response team. An annual tree planting exercise took place in Diabugu in URR in the Sandu district and saw about 200 trees planted around the village backyards. In international news, after last week's Beirut explosion, Lebanon's government resigns as public anger mounts. Mauritania's president gets rid of some ministers, opening the way for them to be investigated over various financial matters. A Cape Verde court dismisses the attempt by an ally of the Venezuelan president to halt his extradition to the USA. And a Kenyan female pre-independence freedom fighter is honored with a Google Doodle. In sports news, tennis legend Serena Williams leads a team of high-profile backers behind the launch of an LA-based women's soccer team. An ex-Gambia international Idrissa Sonko kicks off his professional coaching career with a team in the UAE. Those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. In local news, many health workers have tested positive with the coronavirus in the Gambia, with official figures showing close to 200 health workers have been infected with the virus, with dozens more in quarantine. The president of the Gambia Association of Resident Doctors tells QTV that the government have not done enough to protect and address the welfare of doctors. Mumdu Lamin Choi has more.
Healthcare workers in every health system are the driving force of any country's health response machinery, especially in the fight against COVID-19. In the Gambia, the number of infections among nurses and doctors is spiking at a rate that is interrupting our national response to COVID-19. Close to 200 health workers in both private and public hospitals now have the virus, of whom close to 50 are doctors who are receiving treatment. However, there have been negative reports regarding their experiences in treatment and health facilities.
If they are feeling that this necessary support is not forwarded to them, because you could imagine somebody who is working at the front line having symptoms, and it takes about 3-4 days before a sample is collected from that individual. How would that individual feel to risk his or her life when it comes to COVID-19, when he himself doesn't have the necessary protections? So these are some of the motivating issues that are arising.
Healthcare workers are on the front line fighting a virus that requires safety and protection of their lives for a continuous and progressing battle against COVID-19. In the absence of considerable support from the government, health workers are becoming demotivated, thereby slowing down the country's response to COVID-19.
COVID-19 has hit us hard as doctors. But prior to this, we had our own issues and worries, which we raised to the Ministry of Health about how to make sure that those who are on the forefront, that things are in place when it comes to protective gears, medications, and even the welfare of doctors. These are things that we have raised with the Ministry of Health. We even came with recommendations when it comes to the welfare of doctors.
The National Coordinator for the Gambia's COVID-19 response acknowledges problems facing health workers and confirms government's plans to bring solutions.
Been perfect in terms of what they were expecting government to compensate them, and there have been a lot of discussion around that end. We are going to try to resolve it in the best amicable way going forward. But we've got to continue to ask the indulgence of health workers to keep putting that sacrifice. And I said at the beginning, the entire society of the Gambia, not only the government, the entire society of the Gambia must continue to pay tribute and gratitude to the health workers.
It is a divine calling for most of them, who still are determined to make do with any given circumstances to protect and save lives. While there has been a surge of COVID-19 infections among health workers, the president of the Gambia Association of Resident Doctors reports a limited number of its association's members offering routine healthcare services across the country.
Facilities that provide specialized care for pregnant women are very few in this country. Likewise, the doctors who are specialized in this. Imagine one of these doctors happen to get infected and is in Bansang. You can imagine that person being in quarantine for 14 days. So for 14 days, those services in the whole of CRR will not be provided. So you can just imagine that if that should continue like that, the trend should continue like that. So these are the things that are worrying, and the doctors are foreseeing some of these things arising in the future as we continue, as our cases continues, especially among those who are providing routine care.
The proportion of health workers to the population of the Gambia is 0.11 per 1,000, which is below the African average of 0.45 per 1,000. When more of our already low number of health workers are getting infected and affected by the virus, plus demotivating factors surrounding them, this can cause a national disaster. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
Along with the precautionary health measures from the WHO and the Ministry of Health guidelines, the mayors of Banjul, Rohey Malik Lowe, on Sunday launched the Know Your COVID-19 Status initiative in Banjul to help control the further spread of the coronavirus. Laurie M. Camara was there and she fastened to support.
The initiative comes as the country registers a surge in COVID-19 cases and is a move to control the further spread of the virus among residents in the capital. With this in mind, Rohey Malik Lowe, the mayoress of Banjul, calls on residents of Banjul to take the disease seriously by coming out to do the test voluntarily in order to avoid the further spread of the virus, adding that knowing your status will help greatly.
COVID-19 is real and it's deadly. Campaign bi yàgg na waaye tey ñu ngi fi ñëw pour launch initiative Know Your COVID-19 Status.
She also advises and calls on the public to be more vigilant, especially those coming from attending the feast of Eid al-Adha, and calls for them to be quarantined, as they may be coming from COVID-19 affected zones. She advises them also to call the coronavirus call center. She thanked the frontline workers for their immense efforts in the fight against coronavirus. In recent days, there is an increase in number of cases in the country, and Banjul so far has registered more than 100 cases. This initiative is among the efforts to ensure the numbers do not go much higher. For Qtv News, Lolly M. Kamara.
Youths of Bakau, Newtown and Fajara, in collaboration with their ward councillor, have set up a COVID-19 emergency response team to raise awareness in their community to contain the spread of the deadly virus. Our reporter Omar Pijalo went with the team and he fastened this report.
As more and more people are getting infected with the coronavirus in the Gambia, many youth groups are finding new and innovative ways to raise awareness and spread information about it. The Bakau, Newtown and Fajara COVID-19 emergency response team has decided to put public awareness raising at the top of their list of activities in order to spread awareness about the virus in their communities. According to organizers, awareness raising and sensitization campaign is the first phase of the initiative. The second phase will center on identifying vulnerable families in their communities to support them with food relief as the country gets nearer to a total lockdown. Speaking to QTV, the group's finance officer, CD Fati, said they hope this initiative will better inform their audience of the importance of washing their hands regularly, using hand sanitizers, avoiding close contact with others, and wearing face masks at all times, as well as taking other different preventive measures to limit contacting the virus, and where to seek reliable information about the virus.
COVID-19 has been an issue increasing every single day. It is increasing. This thing is not even increasing one after the other, but it is increasing rapidly, seriously. So we see to it that this thing, we have to, it says necessary that we have to form an association to come and then start sensitization and the community, starting from Mile 7, Bakau Newtown, Fajara South, up to Bakau. This thing is something to concern to all of us.
Fatumata S. Jame, on behalf of the ward councillor, said the group is looking to continue this campaign to reach out to more people in their communities. According to her, the group also believes this is a critical initiative through which they hope to develop partnership with local organizations and state officials to fund future sensitization campaigns.
This initiative is something that's to create more awareness so that people could know this virus is real. Because I've been seeing some people having this concept and this narrative that this virus is not real. This is something that the government are doing. It's something like a political thing. So people need to erase that concept. And we are here to do that, especially this community, which is Bakau Newtown Fajara. We are here as youths to come out to tell them that this is real. If they are not safe, we are not safe too. So this is a one-to-one thing. The social distancing, we all need to adhere to all the precautionary health measures. In that way, we'll be able to help each other because one person cannot do it. The government cannot do it. Once we all come together, we'll be able to do it.
The scientific breakthroughs, action by governments, and a massive amount of financing can only be helpful in the global fight against the deadly pandemic if young people are actively involved in generating ideas, energy, and initiatives like this one. Youthful energy and vigors are wonderful resources in times of crisis. The novel coronavirus has already forced countries into a state of emergency, sent individuals, including government officials, into quarantine and isolation, and brought about the tragedy of lost lives, the pain of lost livelihoods, and closed businesses and schools. The coronavirus has also made new terms like social distancing and self-isolation common, and enclosed communities around the world in fear. An initiative such as this one is to be welcomed in helping communities understand and cope with what they are facing. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
Well, thumbs up to the youths of Fajara and Newtown. Now, an annual tree planting exercise took place in Diabugu in URR in the Sandugu district and saw about 200 trees planted around the village backyards. The initiative by a community development association called Team Go Green aims to provide an environment free from deforestation and bushburning. The story is by Fude Mane, is narrated by Loli M. Kamara.
This year's event was carried out by the youths as well as elderly men and women of the village, all contributing to a community effort to ensure it succeeded. Abdullah Juara, the chairman of the Team Go Green Association, emphasized the association's motivation and explained how the trees would be preserved for a better environment, in keeping with the association's motto, "Every planted tree must grow."
And this is an annual event that the youth of Diabugu come together under the umbrella of Team Go Green for Sustainable Development to help embark on an annual tree planting exercise. So this year also is one of those exercises that we are embarking on. As you can see, we have planted over 100 trees so far and still counting. And then hopefully by the end of the day we'll plant over 200 or more. And then there are other trees that we need to replace. There was a bushfire that burned down some of our trees that we planted last year. So we intend to replace them. Like I said, we must replace every tree that is burned down or that is died down. So every tree that we plant must survive, must live. That's our motive.
In recent years, the Gambia, most especially in the provinces, many districts and villages have faced problems resulting from bushfires and deforestation. These natural and human factors have contributed to many losses of trees and animals' lives. The representative from the Forest Department, URR, Musa Balde, stresses the importance of planting trees as they are regarded as source of providing life to humans, and he has some words of advice to the people of the village doing all they can to preserve the planted trees.
The importance of tree planting is not just that you plant a tree, you leave it like that. The most important thing is now what we in fact emphasize on now, instead of tree planting, is tree growing. You cannot just plant a tree, you leave it like that. You need to protect that tree. You need to control the tree. You need to treat that tree. Whereby you cannot just waste your energy. Look at the population here today, gathered here. I'm very much glad, in fact, to see different stakeholders here, authorities gathering here to cover this tree planting. So my advice to this association is let them embark on consecutive tree planting every year as they have started already.
Among other residents of the village, Omar Sise, Yao Conte and Batabra Drame all applauded the association and all other villagers who came together to once again make it a successful occasion.
With diaspora, we see our people, how the community is doing in our village. So we contribute from diaspora, and since like almost 3 years now. So last year we started the year before last year. So last year we did started planting the tree. I was not here. I was overseas. So alhamdulillah, this year I'm able to represent it to see how they're doing. I'm glad they're doing very good here. So we are encouraging everyone on the Diabugu, so and diaspora people, so we can come in and contribute and help our village.
For QTV News, Lolly M. Camara.
We will go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, the news continues with international and sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News in international news. In a national TV address on Monday, the Prime Minister Hassan Diab announced the resignation of the entire cabinet. This followed 2 days of angry protest against the government, which has been blamed for the devastating Beirut explosion on August 4th.
The announcement was made in a national TV address by Prime Minister Hassan Diab on Monday evening in the wake of the blast last week. Many Lebanese have cast blame on their country's leaders, accusing them of being culpable through their alleged negligence and corruption. The government resigned today, having only been informed in January with the backing of the powerful Iranian-backed Hezbollah group and its allies. Since the blast, protesters have taken to the streets for 2 straight days over the blast, which claimed the lives of at least 163 people, injured 6,000, and caused massive destruction to parts of the city. Many of those who took to the streets were demanding a root and branch change over the collapse of the economy, endemic corruption, waste, and dysfunctional governance. The president had said that the massive blast was the result of the detonation of 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate stored unsafely at the ports for years. He later said the investigation would consider whether the cause was external interference as well as negligence or an accident. Before this announcement of the government's resignation, the Information, Environment and Justice ministers had resigned on Sunday, as well as several lawmakers. Global leaders, including the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, told a virtual briefing of UN member states on Monday that it was important that a credible and transparent investigation determine the cause of the explosion and bring about the accountability demanded by the Lebanese people. The Lebanese army said on Monday that another 5 bodies were pulled from the rubble, raising the death toll to 163. Search and rescue operations continued. Mahmoud Lamin, QTV News.
Mauritania's president has appointed a new government after the names of several former ministers appeared in a report on the financial dealings of ex-leader Mohamed Ould Abdul Aziz. More in this report.
President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani's office has acknowledged that the change were as a result of the report. He had on Thursday replaced his prime minister for undisclosed reasons. Adama Bokar Soko, Secretary General of Mauritania's presidency, told reporters in the capital, Nouakchott, on Sunday that the move would allow all those named in the report the time they need to prove their innocence. The new government remains substantially similar to the previous one, however, with 18 former ministers reappointed. Soko also said the number of ministries had been reduced to 22 after some were fused. The move comes after President El Ghazouani announced a government reshuffle and replaced his prime minister. Sunday's announcement marks the first time Ghazouani's office has admitted that the controversial report on Aziz was the reason behind the reshuffle. A 9-member parliamentary committee set up in January was tasked with shedding light on aspects of Aziz's 2008 to 2019 tenure. Matters investigated included the handling of oil revenues, the sales of state-owned property in Nouakchott, and the liquidation of a state-owned food company. According to parliamentary officials, last Wednesday, Mauritanian prosecutor said they have received the committee's report and would open an inquiry. 3 former ministers and ex-premier Ismail Ould Ould Sheikh Sidia were named in the report. Mohamed Ould Abdel Aziz, first time to come in power in the poor West African state in a military coup in 2008, then won an election in 2009, followed by another in 2014. Marie-Louise Nsanyang for Qtv News.
A Colombian lawyer and businessman regarded by U.S. officials as Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's corruption ringleader has had his appeal against extradition to the U.S. dismissed by a court in Cape Verde. He was indicted in July 2019 in a U.S. federal court in Miami for his alleged participation in an illegal bribery scheme. Mumu Dumboj has the rest of that.
Alex Saab, a 48-year-old who, although Colombian, also has a Venezuelan passport, was arrested in June in Cape Verde when his private plane stopped there for refueling en route from Venezuela to Iran. He was arrested according to the U.S. Department of Justice on the basis of an Interpol red notice issued with respect to his indictment in the U.S. Within days of his arrest, the United States requested Saab's extradition. Venezuela's government protested Saab's arrest, describing it as arbitrary, in a statement issued hours after his arrest, contending he is a Venezuelan citizen and an agent of the Bolivarian government and was on a humanitarian mission to get food and medical supplies for COVID-19. His lawyers applied to the Supreme Court of Cape Verde for a writ of habeas corpus for his release, which was denied, and he was kept in a pre-trial detention for the purpose of extradition. In early August, a Cape Verde court approved his extradition to the U.S. His defense team said in a statement that it would appeal the decision against what they call Special Envoy Saab before the Supreme Court, and should the appeal fail, they would then make a request to the Constitutional Court. The U.S. indictment alleged that Saab was the mastermind of an illegal bribery scheme from late 2011 through at least September 2015, laundering money from bank accounts in Venezuela to and through bank accounts located in the United States, thereby enabling President Maduro and his illegitimate regime to corruptly profit from imports of food aid and distribution in Venezuela. President Maduro himself and a host of other Venezuelan officials and business executives are under indictment in the U.S., accused of defrauding critical sectors like food imports, public housing, and the oil industry of Venezuela. And Alex Saab is the man the U.S. calls the top corruption henchman for President Maduro. His lawyers call the U.S. charges politically motivated. Although there has been some international disquiet about Saab's arrest, nothing is likely to come of it. Mostly, it centers on the fact that the alleged Interpol warrant for his arrest is dated after he had already been arrested in Cape Verde. Despite this, the Cape Verde court rejected his legal challenge. In a show of political brinkmanship, Alex Saab, according to today's newspaper reports, has written to the Prime Minister of Cape Verde asking him to respect his alleged diplomatic immunity, insisting that as a special envoy of the Venezuelan government, he has diplomatic immunity and must be released immediately. He stresses that he had been illegally detained in Cape Verde for nearly 2 months, waiting for an unfounded and politically motivated request for extradition by the United States. He believes that what he calls his kidnapping is part of an alleged strategy of the White House to change the regime in Venezuela. He warns the Prime Minister that his lack of action will have legal and political consequences, accusing him of tarnishing the independence of Cape Verde by submitting to the dictates of the United States, and added, "I do not think that the people of Cape Verde agree with this, since they have always been discriminated against and belittled by the United States." Saab was once an ally of the U.S. and had helped them put the late Panamanian president, Manuel Noriega, behind bars in Miami 30 years ago on drug trafficking charges. It is believed that the information he can provide the U.S. officials about Venezuelan corruption could be the most damaging yet for President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela's economy has been in free fall for many years now, with skyrocketing hyperinflation, power cuts, and shortages of food and medicine. According to figures compiled by the United Nations, nearly 5 million Venezuelans have left the country since the crisis started to bite in 2014. President Maduro also faces a bitter power struggle with the opposition leader Juan Guaido, who in what is no more than an attempted coup declared himself acting president in January 2019 and is recognized by more than 50 countries, including the US, as Venezuela's constitutional legitimate president. While Washington and Caracas battle over the extradition, Saab's future remains to be decided by Cape Verde. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
Mekatilili Wamenza was a Kenyan female leader who led the Giriama people in a resistance against the British colonial administration and was politely active between 1912 to 1915. Mekatilili Wamenza's life has been pieced together by scholars through oral history and colonial records. This week, Google celebrated her with a Google Doodle. Mariama Fall has the rest of that.
According to records at the National Museums of Kenya, Mekatilili was thought to have been born in the 1840s and is viewed as one of Kenya's earliest freedom fighters. Her place of birth was Mutara Watsutsi, Ganzi village in Kili County, and her birth name was Nazazi. She was born into a family of 4 brothers, Zai, Hari, Kitty, and Warandu, and 1 sister. One of her brothers, Kitty, was captured by Arab slave traders when they had gone to trade at Kili with other brothers. She remembered Mefoho's prophecy about the coming of strange people who had hair like sisal fibers and moved in flying vessels, as well as those moving on water and on land. She also remembered that the coming of these strangers would begin the erosion of Giriama cultural traditions. That prophecy came true when the Imperial British East African Company, IBEA, started building a railway. Mekatilili was married and had a son, Katilili, hence her name meant Mother of Katilili. She was widowed, and this gave her more freedom to move around as a woman leader, telling her people to resist the British. The IBEA was planning to move her people from their land near the Sabaki River, as well as forcing the much-hated hot tax on them. So it was that Mekatilili used to call meetings with the Kifudi dance, the Giriama funeral dance, at which she would encourage her tribe to resist and swear oaths. She is also said to have had mysterious powers that came from Kaya, the Giriama shrine. One day, a British administrator, author, champion, held a meeting at Chakwama, Kuahua Wanji, to encourage the Giriama youth to join the British Army. With a hen and her chicks in hand, Mekatilili attended the meeting and challenged the administrator to snatch one of the hen's chicks, in demonstration of what would happen if he took away the Giriama youths. The angry mother hen pecked at Champion, humiliating him in the process. Champion shot dead the mother hen, to which Mekatilili responded with a fiery slap. The administrator's bodyguard responded by recklessly firing on a group of youths, killing them, which sparked the Nyera and Giriama war. As a result of that occurrence, Mekatilili, together with Wanje Mowadurikula, were arrested and sent to Kisel to be locked in prison. On January 14, 1914, they escaped and, under mysterious circumstances, walked for more than 700 kilometers from Kisel to Kili without the colonial oppressors knowing. She was again recaptured on August 16, 1914, after much resistance, in which many of her tribe's people were shot, their houses burned, and their cars bombed. She was sent to Kismayo in Somalia, where she again escaped under unknown circumstances. This time, the British were too busy with World War and left her alone. Mekatilili died in the 1920s of natural causes, and Mekatilili Wamenza Festival is held in her memory, and therefore Google has decided to celebrate her with a Google Doodle. Reporting for QTV News, I am Mariama Fall.
And now here is sports news. Ex-Gambia international Idrissa Sonko have kicked off his coaching career in Qatar with his new team as a professional coach. The ex-Scorpions Steve Biko and Anderlecht star will lead Al Ta'woon FC into Qatari new season. Alaji Ahmad Cham has the rest of that.
Yet another Gambian football coach is making strides abroad after recent reports on Tafa Mane making successful coaching in Liberia. Idrissa Sonko has been appointed head coach of Al Ta'woon FC and will lead his team into the upcoming United Arab Emirates 2nd Division League campaign. The former Scorpions attacker, who played for Anderlecht in Belgium and Rode JC in Kakada in Holland and obtained his coaching license from the English FA. He started training with the team last week and is aiming to be successful in the second division championship. The team was bottom of the league before the former coach was sacked and Idrissa, fondly called Idi, was appointed. Born in Esau, he played for the national team from 2000 to 2009. Idi Sonko also played for Steve Biko and Real de Banjul before moving to Anderlecht. Elsewhere, another Scorpions player, Lamine Diallo, fondly called Beck, after England legend David Beckham, will be out of the game for some weeks after undergoing surgery. The Gambian international, currently with Salernitana, had his operation on Padilla in Rome, a clinic specialized for traumatic injuries for professional athletes. The operation was scheduled for the end of the season. Diallo is going under the knife for a slight cartilage injury, believed to have been picked up on national duty, and then aggravated it during the derby against Bonaventure last September. Lamine Diallo is expected to be back to walking in a few days with crutches, and within 1 to 2 weeks, he will be able to gradually resume the rehab process. The Gambian forward said, "I can't wait to return to my job," and he's hopeful of joining his team on pre-season training. He gave the positive outcome of the surgery on Instagram posting. "The operation went well. I can't wait to get back stronger than before. Thanks to Allah. Thanks to your prayers." Lamine Diallo, 24, played 22 games in this season, scoring 6 goals. Alhaji Ahmad Cham reporting for QTV News.
A group of investors, including Serena Williams, will form a new Los Angeles-based women's team to launch in time for the 2022 National Women's Soccer League season. Babakar C has the rest of that.
The team name and home venue are yet to be decided, but the ownership group has called itself Angel City. There is currently no California-based team in the National Women's Soccer League. Despite a lot of interest in women's football, Los Angeles has never had a women's team. Serena Williams' husband, Alexis Ohanian, co-founder of the tech company Reddit, is part of the ownership group. The couple's 2-year-old daughter, Olympia, is also listed as an owner. Among the group too are 14 former U.S. national team soccer players, actress Eva Longoria, Jennifer Grana, Ozu Odupa, Jessica Chastain, and America Ferrara, plus investors from the technology and media sectors. "We come together with a collective passion for bringing about change," added the consortium's co-founder and president Julio Ombran, who is a media and gaming entrepreneur. "Change for our players, change for our fans, and change for our community. Change that begins today." Women's soccer is rising high on the wave created by the U.S. Women's National Team's World Cup Championship last summer. Last season, the National Women's Soccer League attendance rose 22%, ending at 792,409, a season record. The future is looking brighter, with soccer interest at an all-time high, the Olympics set to take place next summer, and the next World Cup slated for 2023. Babakar C, QTV News.
Before we end this news bulletin, let's take a quick look at our main stories. As nearly 200 health workers test positive for the coronavirus, there is displeasure from the association representing resident doctors about the little government is doing to protect them. The mayoress of Banjul is at the forefront of an initiative trying to convince residents of the capital to get tested and know their status. Youths of Bakau Newtown and Fajara, in collaboration with their ward councillor, have set up a COVID-19 response team. An annual tree planting exercise took place in Deabugu in URR in the Sandugu district and saw about 200 trees planted around the village backyards. In international news, after last week's Beirut explosion, Lebanon's government resigns as public anger mounts. Mauritania's president gets rid of some ministers, opening the way for them to be investigated over various financial matters. A Cape Verde court has dismissed the attempt by an ally of the Venezuelan president to halt his extradition to the USA. And a Kenyan female pre-independence freedom fighter is honored with a Google Doodle. In sports news, tennis legend Serena Williams leads a team of high-profile backers behind the launch of an LA-based women's soccer team. And an ex-Gambia international, Idrissa Sonko, kicks off his professional coaching career with a team in the UAE. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Join us same time tomorrow for more news. Thanks for watching and do stay safe.